On this episode of The Accent on Air, we examine the symbols of Christmas.
I'm Jordan Whiteco with a story about St. Nicholas, one of the most recognizable figures in the world, a man inspired by Jesus himself.
Plus, the Catholic accent on assignment in Bethlehem, learning more about the birth of Jesus.
And Bishop Kulik just back from Rome and in audience with the Holy Father.
The Accent on Air Christmas edition starts right now. Welcome to the Accent on Air, the symbols of Christmas. I'm Jennifer Mealy. We begin today with a story about one of the most popular symbols of Christmas, St. Nicholas. History tells us that St. Nicholas was born about 300 years after Jesus to wealthy parents in what is now southern Turkey. Instead of keeping his fortune for himself, he dedicated his entire life to giving to the poor and caring for children. Here's Jordan Whiteco.
Christmas celebrations filled with gifts and food can often become secularized, but examining the life of St. Nicholas reminds us of the reason for the season.
Children love breakfast with St. Nicholas at St. Agnes Parish in North Huntington. The children make Christmas cards for their families, decorate St. Nicholas sugar cookies, and pose for pictures with jolly old St. Nick.
The real meaning of Christmas, obviously, is the birth of Jesus, but St. Nicholas was so dedicated to that idea of generosity and giving, just as Jesus is our gift all year round. That's why we start with St. Nicholas early in the Advent season and try to help them understand that connection and get back to the basic religious, if you will, understanding of what Christmas is all about.
I'm a bishop, and you know what I like to do? I like to give gifts.
The generosity of St. Nicholas has influenced stories, music, and art in almost every culture around the world.
Our own Bishop Larry Kulik has a passion for the St. Nicholas-inspired art designed by Pipka Olvelden.
This image here that Pipka made is called Midnight Flight. Most Pipka collectible people will tell you it's the holy grail of the Pipka collection. And what it represents is how St. Nicholas has evolved in our American culture into the modern day Santa Claus. I think the Midnight Flight just about depicts the American St. Nicholas or the American Santa Claus. I love, as she always does, the religious imagery, and of course as they're taking off, the prominence of the church. He's flying over the church as he's taking off, symbolic of the important spiritual roots of Christmas.
Father Christmas, Kris Kringle, Papa Noel, Santa Claus. Pipka art depicts different cultural versions of St. Nicholas, always including religious symbols. No surprise, since he's one of the most recognizable figures in the world, even in the North Pole. For model train enthusiasts like Monsignor Raymond Riffle, Santa's North Pole wouldn't be complete without a manger scene.
I think if we can reframe Santa Claus as someone not apart from Jesus, but someone in imitation of Jesus, who is doing what he knew God did. God gave his first, his best, his most important gift. And Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, imitated that using everything that he had.
As Catholics, we celebrate the feast of St. Nicholas on December 6th. Oftentimes, children place their shoes out on the evening of December 5th, so they'll be filled with gifts and treats. It's a tradition you can start in your own home.
When he was young, St. Nicholas is said to have made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, seeking a deeper experience of Jesus' life. I joined some modern-day pilgrims on a similar mission in Bethlehem to learn more about the birth of Jesus. King David was once a humbled shepherd boy from Bethlehem, who went on to become one of Israel's most important kings. He is written about throughout the Old Testament for his love and commitment to God. According to Dr. Christopher McMahon, Department Chair and Professor of Theology at St. Vincent College, the belief that Jesus' birth in Bethlehem fulfills the Old Testament prophecy that Israel's future king would come from Bethlehem.
There's this hope, this expectation that God will raise up a descendant of David, and that descendant of David will fulfill the promises made through the prophets, particularly through Micah. And Jesus is the fulfillment of those hopes and expectations, as is presented in the Gospels of Luke and Matthew.
Many of us are familiar with the Nativity story. Baby Jesus is wrapped in swaddling clothes, then laid in a manger because there was no room for him at the inn. The manger symbolizes the humble beginnings of Jesus, who would become the spiritual food for the world. But Dr. McMahon says the distinction between the manger and the inn, as described in the Gospel of Luke, is just as significant.
He doesn't stay in an inn where travelers or foreigners stay. No, he's at home.
The Church of the Nativity is located on the spot believed to be the birthplace of Jesus more than 2,000 years ago. It was built by the Romans in the year 327 and has survived invasions, rebellions, and earthquakes. The only way to enter the original church is through a 3.5-foot doorway designed to keep raiders on horseback out of this sacred place. Benedictine Father Matthew Lambert, who is currently working on his doctorate in the Holy Land, says bowing in reverence as you enter seems fitting.
The theological justification I heard when I visited was this is to encourage us to be humble because you have to bow yourself to enter the door.
On the walls are mosaics of saints and angels, and a set of steps lead down to the grotto of the Nativity, which is said to be the actual birthplace of Jesus. Marking the spot is a 14-point star on the marble floor under the altar of the Nativity. Written in Latin, the star reads, "Here of the Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ was born." I hope someday you too have the pleasure of walking in the footsteps of Jesus and deepening your personal relationship with him as well. I'm Mary Siemens, on assignment in Bethlehem.
Coming up on the Accent on Air, the evolution of Christmas lights. The light of a star led the wise men to Jesus. How we too can find the light of Christ this holiday season.
A pagan symbol whose meaning evolved after the birth of Christ. I'm Robin Mall. Coming up, we're learning more about the Christmas wreath.
Bishop Kulik reflects on his visit to the Vatican and his audience with Pope Francis. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Ford Business Machines technicians are never satisfied with anything less than perfection.
Which is better, 1 or 2?
They take the time to fully understand the scope of the issue and make it crystal clear that you will be able to view your documents at a level that you should expect.
Now, which is better?
That's the one right there.
Don't settle for less when it comes to your company's image. Call today for a well-defined analysis of your current picture.
Even right now, I'm a senior graduating in college, like out of St. Vincent. I want to do my 4 years here again. That's how much I love this place.
I've had so many experiences and I've met so many wonderful people here, and I'm just so thankful that they've helped me grow into who I am now.
St. Vincent's just a place where if you're here, you're just magnetized toward positivity and openness and kindness to people. It's just what happens, and that's why, that's what a home is. So that's why St. Vincent's my home.
In the Gospel of John, Jesus tells his followers that he is the light of the world and that they will never walk in darkness. At Christmas time, light is a symbol of celebration.
The idea of light at Christmas goes way back even to the Epiphany star. It was the light that led the wise men to the baby Jesus, and it was the radiance of that light that gave hope to all humanity. Light symbolizes many things to many people, but above and beyond all else, light brings comfort, light brings peace, and light gives you a feeling of warmth and just hope inside. Way before the invention of electricity, when people lived in total darkness, one tiny candle in a room truly brought comfort, warmth, and security to people. And when we talk about the lights of Christmas, they certainly didn't start out the way we have them today. Hundreds of years ago, when people would travel during the holidays, horses and buggies didn't have streetlights. And so sometimes it was hard to traverse when you were getting nearer towns or villages or places of your destination. And so they would put out what we call luminaria today to illuminate the roadways. And so light is not just something to give us direction, but light truly is a guiding star for our entire lives. Christmas does bring a change in people. People are lighter. People are certainly more loving, more giving, more generous with their time, with their money, with their energy. And I think all of that has to do with the celebration of the birth of Christ. And as the day gets closer, you just get that feeling inside of you, that's the light that Christ brings to our world. I think that as long as we recognize and emphasize the whole point of what Christmas celebrations are all about, it is that light, it is that warmth, it is that hope that Christmas and the birth of Jesus bring to our hearts. And the more aware of that simple gift we become, the more that presence of Christ will be a part of who we are throughout the year.
Here's another Christmas tradition steeped in symbolism. Once a pagan symbol of victory, it has evolved since the birth of Jesus to become a circular symbol of eternal life. I had a wonderful opportunity to visit Cokeville Produce Market and Greenhouse in Blairsville for a wreath-making class. Owner Kim Dorelia occasionally opens her store after hours for gatherings like this, and sometimes nearby fellow parishioners join in the fun.
It was nice for the women to get out and enjoy a nice evening out where they can enjoy each other's company, plus take a creative project home.
Father Sam Lamondola, pastor at St. Joseph and St. Martin Parish in Derry, spoke with the Catholic accent to explain more about the symbols of the Christmas wreath.
The green gives hope of an eternal dimension to life, of the immortal soul. There's more to life than we can see. And a lot of that is contained through a simple circular wreath.
Traditional wreaths are in the form of a circle, which is a symbol of eternity. The spiritual meaning stands for divine perfection and God's never-ending love. The evergreens represent the unending nature of God, a metaphor for life after death. Green is also the color of hope and life. The holly leaves have sharp thorns, representing the crown placed on Jesus' head before he died on the cross. The vividness of the holly berries represent a warm light of life during the cold winter months. And the color red symbolizes the blood of Christ, his passion, death, and resurrection.
If you really stop and look at the symbols that are in the wreath, it might make us think more about our faith. And I think that's the reason behind the wreath in the first place.
For those gathering at Cokeville Produce Market, adding their creativity to wreaths, swags, and centerpieces make their projects even more meaningful as they prepare to put these symbols of Christmas in their own homes.
Bells are another important symbol of Christmas, used to call attention to the birth of Christ. Coming up, why one local parish hopes the sound is also a call to bring people back to church.
Welcome to the Pantalone Funeral Home. As a family-owned business and staple of the Greensburg community for over 50 years, we are here to support you and your family during your most difficult times. Regardless of your preferences or needs, we will consult with you to provide you with a service that is unique and reflects on the deceased's personal life and memory. If you are considering pre-arranging your own service, the arrangements you make will reflect your exact wishes and will help to ease the burden of your loved ones. For more information, please visit our website or call for assistance.
Filling these pews is a priority for the Council of Churches in Scottsdale, Westmoreland County, especially at Christmas time. Their hope is that the sound of ringing bells will remind people to celebrate the birth of our Savior by returning to Mass. Santa Claus is invited by his good friend Edwin Zilka to spend some time each year with the faithful at St. John the Baptist Parish in Scottsdale, along with Father Elmer Alforquet. They are praying for a strong return of the faithful to Mass this Christmas season.
We pray for all families in this part of the country, especially in the Diocese of Greensburg, that they will listen to the voice of your call for prayer and above all for unity.
After their prayer, every single person takes a turn ringing the bells outside church for at least 5 minutes. The booming sounds resonate deeply in the hearts of each parishioner and lift Santa's spirits even higher in anticipation of the birth of Jesus.
As an 8-year-old child, he'd be going to Mass
the snow would be falling, and it seemed like every church in the area would be ringing their bells for midnight mass to announce the coming of our Savior Jesus Christ. And the idea of that is to make people aware that the person that is most important in their lives is God. And if we have problems, we should turn to God. He will help us.
These bells are a call to come back to church, which is why many churches in the area are embracing the idea. You may hear the bells in your community at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving Eve and New Year's Day.
And hopefully we can bring back that idea to send a message through the bells. So whether you're here at a church or whether you're at home, it's kind of like, I'm going to stop at 6 o'clock and ring bells for about 5 minutes as a message to God that I remember you're the most important thing in my life.
Eucharistic Revival is a 3-year process initiated by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, initiated to invite the faithful to reflect upon the mystery and meaning of the sacrament of the Eucharist in our lives. Tom Octave, Director of Sacred Music for the Diocese of Greensburg, was appointed to a national committee to help lead the initiative.
In each of those years, Catholics throughout the United States are asked to grow in their understanding of Eucharistic catechesis, to look at cultures of Eucharistic communities in our parishes and in our greater communities, and see how the Eucharist impacts every aspect of a Catholic's life. The Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. It's Jesus' greatest gift to His church. At every Mass, we celebrate the fact that Jesus is still here with us, present in the Eucharist. Our goal for this revival is for each Catholic to grow in their understanding of the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, and then the challenge is for us to become what we receive, to become Christ's body in the world, to reach out to all those in the world with Christ's love, compassion, and mercy.
To learn more about Eucharistic Revival, visit theaccentonline.org.
Eucharistic Revival was one topic discussed at the Bishops' Institute in Rome this fall. Bishop Kulik reflects on his visit there and meeting Pope Francis for the first time.
And the session that I was in, there was almost 180 bishops from around the world that had been ordained in the past 3 years. I had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Bishop Mark Ekman, the auxiliary bishop of Pittsburgh, and also Bishop Dave Bonner, who was a Pittsburgh native and is now the Bishop of Youngstown. I also had a wonderful opportunity to meet 2 newly ordained Filipino bishops. And both of these bishops do not have representatives in the Diocese of Greensburg, so I was sort of recruiting and promoting a little bit our international priest program. I also had a wonderful opportunity to meet one of the new Slovak auxiliary bishops, Bishop Peter Benio, who is the auxiliary of Nitra. That also then led to a wonderful interview on Vatican Radio that was broadcast throughout Slovakia.
Bishop Kulik was gifted with a mitre while he was in Rome, a memory he will never forget. Being of Slovak descent, Bishop Kulik looked up to Slovak Cardinal Joseph Tomko, one of the oldest members of the College of Cardinals. He died in August, just a few weeks before Bishop Kulik traveled to Rome. The sisters who cared for Cardinal Tomko invited Bishop Kulik for a visit while he was there, and presented him with the gift.
It means so much to me, not only because when I was growing up, Cardinal Tomko was the great hero and was a close collaborator with Pope St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict. So he distributed ashes to Pope St. John Paul, to Pope Benedict, and to Pope Francis. The ultimate highlight in this experience was being able to celebrate Mass at St. Peter's. We were greeted by the Holy Father in the Clementine Chapel, and the Holy Father was so generous with his time. He spent over an hour and a half with us, and the format was very relaxed, and he really wanted to hear from the bishops, to answer any questions, to have an opportunity for any of us to comment, discuss with us bishops what he felt were some of the great priorities of the church. What I was very pleased and edified with in my experience was that in many of the areas that the Holy Father stressed to us as bishops that we needed to shepherd our dioceses and the people entrusted to our care, I was so proud that in the Diocese of Greensburg, so many of those areas we are covering and we are doing, building up the faith, reconciling people. The Holy Father reminded us to be bishops of humility. He reminded us to be shepherds who are out among the people. And he reminded us how important it was to show mercy and compassion.
Decorating a Christmas tree is a wonderful family tradition. From the ornaments to the branches, each part is steeped in symbolism. Stay rooted. The Axe on an Arrow will be right back.
Valero Service is currently hiring talented individuals interested in putting their skills to use in the customization and fabrication of state-of-the-art vehicles. Opportunities include welding, carpentry, mechanical service, electronic technologies, collision repair, painting, parts, and inspections. Valero Service is an in-demand customization service center for many companies across the country in need of specialty vehicles. Call Valero Service at 724-468-1010 and put your skills to work today.
The Christmas tree is filled with symbolism to help us commemorate the birth of Jesus. For a Catholic family in Indiana County, the tradition of finding and decorating the tree is rooted in faith.
Our first Christmas tree was in 1992. Carolyn and I actually dug that tree.
We planted it here on the property.
Yeah, not knowing we were going to be living here. And it's growing over here in the yard. It's probably 30 feet tall now.
One of our first dates were trimming Christmas trees.
The Davis family, parishioners at Church of the Good Shepherd in Kent, have a long-standing tradition of planting Christmas trees for family and friends. It's a way they can share their family tradition and symbols of faith at Christmas with others, starting with the tree itself. The evergreen itself is a symbol of Jesus' gift of everlasting life and hope because it does not die in the winter. Its needles point upward to heaven. When it's cut and replanted, we are reminded of Christ's resurrection. Jesus is the light of the world, which is why our trees are lighted. The lights also invite us to be the light to show others the way to Christ. We all have special traditional ornaments. Red ornaments symbolize God's love and the love of Christ, while gold ornaments represent Christ the King. Legend tells us that a faithful family wanted to decorate a tree in honor of the Christ child, but they had no money for decorations. In the night, spiders spun webs across their tree and the Christ child, honoring the family's faith. The webs turned into silver, which is the reason many add tinsel. The most common tree toppers are stars and angels. The star symbolized Jesus' birth in Bethlehem and the hope for humanity. The angel represents the host of angels announcing his birth to shepherds tending their flocks. And finally, the presents under the tree. We are given the best gift from God, His only Son, Jesus.
That tree, whether it's artificial or a real tree, the important thing is the season.
And doing it together as a family.
I'm Melanie Haggis, Managing Director of Catholic Charities at the Diocese of Greensburg, and I'd like to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas. If you are considering making a charitable donation this Christmas, please consider Catholic Charities. Over the course of 2022, we have answered over 12,000 calls from our faith community. These calls range from food, clothing, to utility bill assistance. Our information and referral line tries to help everyone that calls in because we don't want anyone to be without this holiday season. We are still feeling the impact from COVID-19. In fact, the number of homeless increase each and every day. These are folks that may have lost their jobs during COVID and have found themselves behind on their bills, and they need our help so that they can get back to work. Our organization is dependent upon the support that you provide. So please remember us on Christmas Day. You may donate online at ccharities.greensburg.org.
Hello, I'm Paul Pulio, Managing Director for Development for the Diocese of Greensburg. You can support Catholic Charities, but in addition, you can support your parish through endowments. An endowment is a way for people to give long-term support to different entities within the Diocese of Greensburg. Parishioners looking for ways to support their parish in a perpetual manner would be through an endowment. They can support that parish. It can support their cemetery, it can support the maintenance of the grounds, you can support faith formation, you can support religious education. There are different ways. You can contact the development office and we can explain those many ways to you.
After the break, Bishop Kulik in the kitchen cooking up a traditional Slovak Christmas Eve recipe. The Accent on Air continues after the break.
My great-great-grandparents started Rizzo's 84 years ago, and we're still here today. Same business, same family, same location. We have our lines of sauce and pasta in the stores. We have a banquet facility. We have a line of chocolates. The business really has expanded, but consistent is the tradition and the quality. We're about tradition here at Rizzo's, and we invite you to come start a tradition yourself.
For Bishop Larry Kulik, mushroom soup was a staple in his Slovak family every Christmas Eve, also known as the Vilia. In it, he adds rehydrated dried mushrooms, white mushrooms, and wild mushrooms, Yukon Gold potatoes, garlic, celery, onion, and bay leaves to a pot of water, along with caraway seed, dill, and parsley. Once that's all mixed together, he adds the juice from a bag of sauerkraut.
This recipe is unique, but it's a traditional recipe that I think when you eat it, when you smell it, when you have it as part of your Christmas celebration, you certainly know Christmas is here. And it brings back a lot of wonderful memories. And at this time of the year when we have all of these different customs, the symbolisms of this food carry beautiful scriptural imagery. And I like to say that one of the things that is in the soup is the garlic. And the garlic is a bitter herb. And in the Vilia, or Christmas Eve dinner, the garlic is reminiscent of the bitterness of sin. So when we have garlic in our Christmas Eve meals, we're reminded not only of the condition of humanity, how it was before Christ came after the fall of Adam, but how now with the incarnation of Christ, the Word becoming flesh, that Christ comes to save us. Mushrooms are a wonderful symbol of prosperity because they're a symbol. Mushrooms grow where they're not planted. They come up as a symbol of free bounty and God's bounty and His goodness. And so they're harvested without having the work of being planted.
Once the water heats, Bishop Kulik adds a stick of butter, then turns the heat to low and lets the soup cook for 2 to 3 hours, stirring frequently.
Mushrooms take on the taste of what they're put with. The slower you cook it, the better it comes because all of the juices and the different herbs and the different seasonings that we use sort of all come together.
When the soup is ready, he adds some salt and pepper to taste, and then this traditional Slovak Christmas Eve mushroom soup is ready to serve on Štedrý večer, which means bountiful night.
We're going to now taste a little bit of this soup. That is good. Wow, that says Christmas. Certainly, I'd like to wish each and every one of you and all of your families the very best for this Christmas season. May God bless you, and in whatever customs and traditions you carry on, may the Lord be with you, and may you have a very merry and blessed Christmas.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Accent on Air. These stories are also available at theaccentonline.org.